Hello, and welcome back to another edition of Tech in 10, the Louisiana Tech Bulldogs post-game show from the Ruston Daily Leader. I am sports editor Matt Bellinson coming to you after Louisiana Tech's 30-11 victory over the UTEP Miners on this late Saturday evening, early Sunday morning, depending on the time that you're listening to this. To the Tech in 10 train never stops. That's one thing I've noticed. And as Louisiana Tech SID Stephen Featherston pointed out before this game, this is not going to be the last late Louisiana Tech game that we're going to have this year. They also, are going to play at Washington State on the West Coast pretty late this year. So just got to get ready for these late night games. They can't all kick off at 6:30, unfortunately. But regardless, that's not why you called. So yeah, just bottom line, Louisiana Tech wins 30-11. There's so many thoughts in my head right now. Unfortunately, this video usually only goes about 10 to 15 minutes, but I'll try and be as concise as I can. I think first and foremost is this defense is it's not the best defense in the nation. I think as far as the yardage they give up or just kind of the flat out pass rush that they get, but it's certainly the most opportunistic defense. It's the most electrifying defense that I've seen in my 4 seasons covering Louisiana Tech. And again, last year's defense was great. They finished top 12 in the country in total defense. They were great in the red zone. They certainly had a couple takeaways that were nice. This team has 13 takeaways, 11 interceptions through 5 games. It's pretty extraordinary, honestly. And I asked Sonny Cumbie post game, how does he describe it? Like, has he experienced something like this? And he said no. But he certainly is amazed by it. And he certainly will take it on a night where his offense and this Louisiana Tech offense once again faces a lot of issues and a lot of things we'll get into in a minute. But we have to start with this defense. Again, 13 takeaways. Again, all the FBS stats have not been updated with all these games this weekend. But I would imagine by the time next week starts, they'll be top 5 in the country in every defensive, takeaway category. They're certainly going to be, in my mind, I would think, number 2 or number 3 maybe in the country in terms of interceptions. They are just flat out ball hawks. They just make plays on the ball again, either off tip drills or just standing where the quarterback makes indecisions. This defense just continues to make game-changing plays, and frankly, plays that have allowed Louisiana Tech to win some of these games. Again, I know the final score reads that Louisiana Tech blew UTEP out, and it was an easy win. If you were watching this game, that was not the case. This is a 10-3 ball game with 10 minutes left to go in the fourth quarter before Jakari Foster obviously has the pick 6, and then things kind of snowball for UTEP over the final 10 minutes. So this was certainly a game that Louisiana Tech had a chance to blow, but this defense just continues to make game-changing plays. Again, it can't be overstated that this defense has 11 interceptions. They have 11 interceptions, and they had 5 all of last year. It's just pretty amazing stuff. I think the biggest thing that I've learned about this defense is, you hear the term bend but don't break. I really don't even want to say it about this defense. They certainly gave up, obviously the 35-yard touchdown late in the fourth quarter tonight. But again, they've only given up 7 touchdowns through 5 games. They have 5 defensive touchdowns themselves as a defensive unit. So, I guess it's kind of one of those things where, we keep saying, oh, we can't keep expecting this, and it's not sustainable, and, you shouldn't count on this every single game. But we're almost halfway through the season, and this defense has an interception in every single game. They have 5 defensive touchdowns. I don't want to say that it should be expected because, again, that's such an insane bar to keep. But I think until they prove us wrong, until they say that, hey, we're no longer able to give you a turnover, I think you just have to assume that at some point during a Louisiana Tech game, you're going to get a turnover that's going to be massive. It's going to be crucial. And especially with where this offense is right now, I think you're going to take as many as you can get because this offense needs some help. Obviously defensively, the big story of the night outside of the takeaways, the pick 6 by Jakari Foster and Alonzo Jackson in the fourth quarter was obviously losing Colby Fields. This is the unquestioned leader of this Louisiana Tech defense. He was the preseason Conference USA Player of the Year. He was an all-conference player last year. He was playing like a first-team all-conference player through 4.5 games this season. And unfortunately, in the third quarter of this game, I think it was pretty fitting. He picks off. Once again makes a game changing play. He picks off Malachi Nelson inside the 20-yard line, and then for whatever reason he kind of starts running back towards the end zone. But then he goes down with a non-contact knee injury. At least looked like to me. And was then carted off. And this entire Louisiana Tech team came off the sideline and greeted him. And It made it clear that he is the leader of this defense. That the players love him, the coaches love him. And Sonny Cumbie called it crushing. He called it crushing post game when I asked him for an update. There is no, I'm recording this again late Saturday evening. I did have a post game Zoom session with Sonny, but as of Saturday night, they did not have an official word on Colby's long term status. They're going to have him being looked at in Ruston when they get back. Again, I'm not a doctor. The way he kind of slammed his helmet, it seemed like he kind of knew what the situation was. Again, he was carted off. I would imagine that he's not going to play again this year. But again, if he does, that's amazing. But just given his reaction and Sonny's reaction post game and the way the players reacted, I would imagine that it's a serious long term injury, which you just hate because again, this is a guy that he started off at 2 SEC schools, was not given really an opportunity to play to start, and then he comes here to Louisiana Tech and he's forced to sit out his first year due to transfer rules. And then last season, he just instantly becomes your best defensive player. He just bursts onto the scene and is just an amazing weapon for this defense. It's just crushing. I think the right word was used by Sonny Cumbie. It's just crushing to see a player that plays with so much passion, with so much intensity, with so much intent, and clearly is a leader that people rally behind. It's just crushing to see a guy like that go down. Obviously, it would be terrible if any player went down with an injury like that. But to see a Colby Fields that had obviously NFL aspirations, potentially after this season, who again was playing his way into a first team All Conference status. Frankly, was probably living up to that Defensive Player of the Year status. It's just unfortunate that he, regardless of what this season ends up being, regardless of how good this defense continues to be, it's just a shame that he can no longer be a part of that story, at least in my mind. So again, we'll wait to see, hear official word, but I would assume that he's probably not going to play again this year, which again is just crushing. You got to see Zarek Hill, a true freshman linebacker from Ruston High. Sounds like he's going to be playing a lot more. Obviously, we saw Jaden Mayfield over the past couple of games this year really emerge. So I would expect to see both of those Ruston High linebackers, along with Alonzo Jackson, who obviously had the pick six. You're going to see a lot of those young linebackers, kind of mix in with Mekai Mason and Sifa Leota in that linebacking room that's so important to this defense. So definitely a lot of things in flux with this defense, obviously with Colby going down, but I still feel like the way that they're just making plays, there certainly is going to be a drop-off just because he's such a playmaker. He led your team in tackles for loss. I guess Mekai led your team in tackles for loss, but still the point remains Colby's a great playmaker. He was the leader of this defense. Certainly without him, this defense does change, but I don't expect them to have a major fall off or anything like that. So again, I think bottom line, your defense won you this game. You scored 23 of your 30 points off their takeaways, so this was a defensive win. There's no question about it. I think that's where it kind of leads me to this next point is, again, you read the final score, it says 30-11. You're thinking, okay, well, that's an easy conference win. It was not. This Louisiana, I tweeted out, it's amazing how sometimes this Louisiana Tech offense, just the way it teases you. You got to go back to the New Mexico State game where they put up 49 points. And you're thinking, oh my gosh, this offense is ready to roll. And then obviously they score 30 against Southern Miss. And oh my gosh, this offense just can't be stopped. Blake Baker in this passing game looks really great. They still have a couple pieces in the run game they still need to figure out. But, who cares that they're going to keep rolling. And we knew coming into tonight that UTEP had a really good defensive line. They led the conference in sacks, tackles for loss. I guess I didn't expect the offense to revert basically back to 2024 again. Maybe not in the sense of the complete red zone ineptitude, but again, you could have been up 21-0 in the first half, and you, for whatever reason, on 3rd and short inside the 10-yard line, you decide to throw a fade ball to Eli Finley, and Blake Baker underthrows the pass, and UTEP's DB makes a nice play and picks him off in the red zone, and then you get down inside the 20-yard line once again, 25-yard line, I think. And for just whatever reason, this offensive line just cannot pass pro consistently. At times they can, and at times Blake Baker can stand in there and take the pressure, take the hit, and make some nice throws. But, on a critical situation inside the 25-yard line, he kind of scrambles back and, attempts to make a forward pass and did not. And it was a sack fumble, and it was returned inside, the Louisiana Tech I think 30, if I remember correctly, and obviously UTEP didn't score. The field goal was blocked, to end the first half. But still, this Louisiana Tech offense, they just have no run game. They just continue to baffle me with their inability to run. And I think the most frustrating part is that's what kind of this offense is built around. Not only with the quarterback run game, but we heard so much from Tony Franklin and the wide receivers and all these offensive players in the offseason that Louisiana Tech has to establish the run game to make this offense go. and we have not seen this run game produce really consistently at all. Again, Clay Theminen had the touchdown in the fourth quarter, and he's certainly been, I think, your most consistent running back. But I just don't understand with inconsistency at the tackle position for this offense. I'm not really sure why 80% of these runs seem to be like let's just let the tackle run horizontally, and let's just hope that he can set the edge, and then let's just hope that Amari Wiggins, Clay, or whoever, Blake Baker at times, like it's just a lot of horizontal running. It's not a lot of upfield just smash mouth football. We certainly saw that in a couple of spurts, but by and large, for whatever reason, Tony Franklin likes to call run plays that start 3 yards behind the line of scrimmage and hope that you can set the edge. I don't really understand it, just given the offensive line inconsistency that we've seen. So, maybe moving forward, they'll change that, because right now you have no run game. And I think that's why, again, you're seeing some of the inconsistencies inside the red zone of, at times they can score, at times they can put up points. But if you don't have consistent running back production, if you don't have a run game to support you, and we saw that clearly. I mean, Louisiana Tech punted 5 times. Obviously, they had some crucial turnovers. A turnover on downs as well, where it's 4th and 1, at your own 46, and you line up your quarterback in shotgun. Like, again, those are playmaking calls that I guess I don't really understand. Like, if you trust your run game, then you would have been fine running the ball. Clearly they didn't, so that's why obviously they turned the ball over on down. So I think the thing for me is your defense is playing like a top 10 unit in the country, just the way that they're making plays on the ball and shutting teams down. This was kind of similar concern I had at the LSU game, where you're thinking, oh my gosh, like, is this defense going to be left out to dry once again this year? Now, again, Louisiana Tech is in a very different position. And again, they won this game. Like, this is not last year where they went into their bye week 1-3 and basically the sky was falling. Like, you're going into your bye week 4-1 overall, 2-0 in conference play. You have done everything required of you on the scoreboard so far. I think but again, if you're a Louisiana Tech fan, you're watching these games and you're saying, is this offense going to fail us at a moment where, maybe this defense again, like, I know I'm going to maybe contradict myself, but like you cannot expect that the defense is going to continue just this historic pace. And so at some point they're just going to have a game where they're not going to turn the ball over. They're not going to have the defensive touchdown. And what is your answer for offensively? What is your answer? Clearly, we saw tonight that this offense has just continued issues stalling out. Again, the Southern Miss win was great. You punted on all 7 of your drives in the second half, and then you come out in the first half, and you have the 1 touchdown on the opening drive, and then you have the multiple turnovers, you have the punts, and you're thinking, oh my gosh, like this offense just cannot find consistency. I don't know what it is, and again, I think it starts with a lack of run game. I think if you can't do that, you really can't build off that pretty much. We saw there were not very many downfield shots in the passing game tonight. I think it's because they couldn't establish the run game. There was no reason for UTEP to be threatened, by anything downfield. And so I just think, by and large, this offense just has a lot of room to grow. I think Blake Baker, this was definitely his worst game, at Louisiana Tech so far. Obviously, the 3 turnovers, were just crucial. They certainly hurt. Again, I think at times, he shows really great awareness in the pocket, stepping up and making some tough throws. And, he made a nice throw to Marlon Jackson. I think, just potentially set up, I think a score, maybe in the second quarter. I think it was like a 12-yard completion with pressure in his face. But again, you also have the 2 sack fumbles. So it's just one of those things where this offense, it kind of takes 2 steps forward and 1 step back, and maybe kind of the opposite, 1 step forward, 2 steps back. So I think this offense just has a lot of room to grow. I think they have to figure out what they want this run identity to be. We still did not see Trey Kukuk out there again tonight. He was not on the injury report, so that means that he dressed, but he didn't play. So I'm not really sure, what exactly his status is. It kind of seems like at this point they've given up on the dual quarterback run game. And again, maybe some of that is because Trey is still not healthy enough to play, but I guess maybe that's a reason why. Is we obviously saw the dual quarterback run game really work well against New Mexico State, and against obviously Southern Miss he didn't play, and then obviously tonight he didn't play. So maybe if he comes back to this lineup, this offense will kind of get back humming. But I mean, you saw it. This offense just at times, it gets in its own way, and it frankly just allows teams to kind of hang around. Like, again, this defense can't give you a defensive touchdown every single possession. So, like, you're going to have to say, like, okay, defense, we know that if we get to 21, 24 points, we're going to win games most of the time. So come out, establish your run game, figure out a script that works, and just go down the field and score. Like, it's not that complicated. Like, again, this defense is not the unit that it was in 2022, 2023, where you need to score 35 points to have a chance to win. All you have to do is find the end zone 2 to 3 times, and this defense has shown that you can win games. So I don't think it's asking too much that this offense figures out an identity, because I'm not nervous, certainly, because again, they're 4-1, 2-0 in conference play. But someone was texting me, during the game, just someone was just knowing that I was covering Louisiana Tech and had texted me, was like, man, is Louisiana Tech the best, like, worst bad team I've seen? It was kind of a weird phrasing, but I think they're true. I think it's correct. Like, I think one side of the ball is a top 10 unit in the country, and the other side of the ball has the potential to be one of the better Conference USA offenses, but then at times also looks like the ineptitude that we've seen over the past 2 seasons. So, I'm not really sure what this offense is at this point. Like, again, it's encouraging. Like, they've won 3 games in a row. They've continued to put up points at times, but the consistency is just not there for me to say, like, this team is a no doubt Conference USA contender. This defense, like, we know what they are. This is the best defense in the league by and large. I guess I just don't know what this offense is at this point. I think Blake Baker's a good quarterback. I think that he's shown that he can make throws, that he can complete passes. I think he can run the offense, but, like, the numbers are the numbers. I mean, I was looking at over the last 2 games, they're 6 of 27 on third down. Like, you're not playing the 85 Bears out there. You're playing Southern Miss and UTEP. Like, you have to be able, if you're going to contend for a conference championship, you have to stay on the field. You have to sustain drives. 6 of 27 on third down. I mean, you're not going to win games doing that. So, again, I don't want to sound all doom and gloom. Louisiana Tech is 4-1. They're 2-0 in league play. Everything they want is still in front of them. But again, if you're a Tech fan and you watch this game, you know what this was. Your offense completely stalled out. It was another, super. Again, this is a 10-3 ball game with 10 minutes to go until Jakari Foster has the pick six. Like, this game was not out of reach for UTEP, for as bad as Malachi Nelson played. Which, oh my goodness, like, probably the worst quarterback Louisiana Tech has played in the 4 years that I've covered this team. Like, just a bad quarterback. I don't know how. I'm not a recruiter. I don't know how he ended up with 5 stars. But anyway, back to the offense for Louisiana Tech. I'm not saying it's doom and gloom, like the sky is falling, like this is 2024 or 2023, where, like, where does this offense go type of stuff. But, like, again, like, I mean, I'm looking at the numbers. UTEP, the last 2 games, they gave up 250 rushing yards to ULM, and they gave up 226 yards to Texas. Let's see what they finished with tonight for Louisiana Tech. They had, I think, less than, I want to say they had less than 50, maybe not 50. 95 rushing yards at 2.3 yards per carry. Like, that's not going to win you a conference title. If you don't have a consistent run game, like, I'm sorry, like, you're just not going to win. I don't care how encouraging Blake Baker has looked. I don't care how many defensive touchdowns you score. Like, you're going to have these close games where you need to sustain a drive, where you need to put a team away. There were so many opportunities tonight before the pick sixes where you're thinking, like, okay, all Louisiana Tech needs is one more touchdown and this game is over. And they just continued to punt, to stall out, to turn the ball over. So, again, this is not a doom and gloom scenario, but this offense has to establish a run game if it's going to win this conference. And this offense has to figure out a way to protect Blake Baker, because I think he is a pretty good quarterback. And, I think he can run this offense. I think you can win with him. But you've got to protect him, and you've got to stay ahead of the chains on first and second down. And again, I want to say it's all in the run game, but man, like, I've seen enough from the passing game where I think if you establish a run game, like, Blake Baker can make plays, and this passing game has some weapons that are intriguing. I think Devin Gandy and Marquise Singleton are definitely some playmakers that have really emerged. Obviously, Eli Finley, didn't have a catch tonight, but obviously we saw what he did against Southern Miss. So I think there are playmakers that on the passing game. In the run game, again, Clay Thevenin, Blake Baker, like, okay. Like, I need to see more. And I need to see more for me to say, like, this team can win a conference title. And I think, frankly, if you're a Tech fan, you're saying the same thing, that, man, when this defense is lights out, they can win us a conference title. But they can't do it alone. And I think that's the bottom line. Is as you enter your bye week, you're 4-1, you're 2-0 in league play, but there are so many things that you can improve. I think that's the maybe the encouraging part. If you're a Tech fan, if you want to stay optimistic, is you're 4-1 and your offense is nowhere close to its full potential. So that's an encouraging, I guess, sign that you still have to play Western Kentucky, Liberty, Sam Houston, and Delaware, and your offense hasn't really hit its stride yet. So I think that's an encouraging sign that there's room to grow. But if you want to be a pessimist and say like, man, like how long do we have to keep waiting for this offense to improve? And I'm certainly with you. I've covered this team for 4 years. It's time for this offense to show some signs of improvement, consistently week after week, to say that they can stay on the field, that they can put teams away when it's time to. So again, Louisiana Tech enters its bye week 4-1. Everything it wants is still in front of it, and this is a late edition of Tech in 10. But I appreciate everyone that's following along and gonna stay with me on these late nights, moving forward. So that's gonna do it for this edition of Tech in 10 from the Ruston Daily Leader. I am Matt Bellinson saying thanks for listening. Have a good one.